Hola, bienvenidos de nuevo a Be Talent. Os estábamos esperando aquí en La Pedrera. Qué mejor lugar para situar este canal de aprendizaje de liderazgo y de talento. Vamos ahora a hablar de otra cosa. En los últimos tiempos ha surgido una nueva corriente, una nueva tendencia. Es el New Management Activism. Directores ejecutivos, CEOs, que manifiestan públicamente sus opiniones en cuestiones políticas y sociales. De modo que ahora, además de defender a su organización, a sus socios, a sus clientes, ahora también los CEOs han de defender la comunidad, el medio ambiente, las escuelas, vaya, todo el mundo. Con sus posicionamientos consiguen no solo generar opinión pública, sino también estimular a los consumidores con ideas afines a comprar más sus productos, o quizá consigan lo contrario, ¿no? Hay muchos millennials que compran o dejan de comprar, hacen boicot a según qué empresa, según lo que haya manifestado el CEO de esa empresa. En este panel veremos qué habilidades, qué talentos necesitan desarrollar los CEOs para participar con eficiencia en este New Management Activism, para construir una sociedad más inclusiva y sostenible. Y para ello hemos invitado a Nina Heinrichs. Ella moderará este panel. Welcome, Nina. Thank you very much for coming here. Ella es Regional Director Southern Europe and North Africa at BBI Communication, specialist in people development, multicultural team management, communication, and international negotiation. She is also an associate professor of the International Mobility Postgraduate at the Barcelona School of Management, a founding member of the Barcelona antenna of the CJD, and a collaborator of the Barcelona and Madrid Chambers of Commerce, ASCAME, and other private and public institutions in and outside Spain. Thank you very much for coming. And we also have here Faris Alami. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Luis Suarez Costa. Welcome.
Gracias. Thank you.
And we also have online by digital platform Binu, Milo Skin or Skene. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Perfectly first time. Milo Skin.
Okay, so welcome here. We're glad to have you here connected. And now we will start. We will remind you, our audience, digital audience, that you can make questions. We are happy to receive and answer your questions. So you know what you have to do. Just chat in the chat. You can put your questions, and Nina will receive them on your mobile, and that's all. Okay? See you later.
Thank you. Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank and congratulate the BNU team for organizing this great event. So I believe we all agree that we needed such a platform to share and network and meet again after what we just have been through. And thank you also for giving me the opportunity to moderate this table about talent and reflect together with our three experts about the current challenges, the new trends, and the keys to develop talent for transformative leadership, the kind that can build more inclusive and sustainable organizations and societies. So before I start bombarding you with my questions, let me introduce you shortly to everyone here in this room, and also to you at home or at your office. So connecting from the UK, Milo Skin, who leads the international division of E2 Exchange, a community of 24,000 entrepreneurs. The organization was founded in 2011 by Shalini Kemka with the support of Sir Richard Branson, former E2E honorary president. Milo is also co-founder of 1807 Careers and additionally works with Latin American companies entering the UK market. Milo was previously the Latin American dealmaker at the Department for International Trade. Thank you, Milo, for connecting.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. Sitting with us here in this wonderful Pedrera from Barcelona and coming from the US, Faris Alami is the founder and CEO of ICM, an international strategic management organization that works with international leaders and entrepreneurs on strategies and implementation to create an empowering environment for startups and existing business to prosper and grow. He has functioned as special advisor and entrepreneur ecosystem expert with the World Bank, business advisors with Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, affiliate with Kaufman Foundation, mentor to MBA students and entrepreneurs globally. In his work facilitating economic and workforce development program that includes entrepreneurship, small medium enterprise development, mentorship and funding, Faris works with high-ranking officials, presidents of countries, ministries, university, incubator, accelerators, and economic development groups. You're busy, huh? Yeah.
You're very kind. I think
You're
that's
busy.
enough, yeah.
He also leads the ICM team in supporting entrepreneurs in underserved communities in finding success. And, important, finally, Faris also founded the non-profit Connecting Dots Globally, a STEMpreneur program in which high school and university students learn to launch a global technology company. He serves on several non-profit boards. Thank you for being here too.
Thank you.
And finally, last but not least, Luis Costa is a Portuguese-American who lived in and worked 25 years in the US and in Canada, and then 10 years in London before moving to Barcelona 18 years ago. So he's now Catalan. Over the past 3 decades, Luis has been a coach, a mentor, a strategic advisor to CEOs, C-level executive, business owners, and senior management teams in a significant number of major global companies, including Fortune 500, innovative companies operating in new ecosystems, dynamic family-owned business, and family office. He is also a coach and advisor to senior partners in professional service firms, consultancy, and law firms. He's a member of the Forbes Coach Council and publishes regularly on Forbes on such topics as CEO and C-level growth and alignment, strategy in uncertain time, high-performing management teams, cultural DNA, organizational effectiveness, trust, collaboration, and communication. He's also a business mentor at Torch, a global platform to build better leaders. So, now you know why I'm so enthusiastic to have this discussion with you guys, with all this talent we have at this talent table. Now you know who will be part of this discussion. I thought that was important. So, we know that the world is experiencing a 15-year low point in an ongoing talent shortage. According to the 21 Q3 Manpower Group Talent Shortage and Employment Outlook Survey, 69% of companies, 69, globally reported talent shortage in 2021. Just so you know, in 2013, it was 35%. So it's quite a big difference. And by 2030, Korn Ferry estimates the global talent crunch could reach 85.2 million people, resulting in the loss of trillions of dollars in economic opportunity for companies. The industries that will be hit the hardest, as Korn Ferry says, are what labor market analysts call knowledge-intensive industry, such as financial services, technology, media and telecommunication, and manufacturing too. So in this post-pandemic world, the strengths and challenges placed on leaders have never been greater. Where talent is your competitive advantage, how organizations and leaders create agile, personal, and transformative work cultures, often dealing with hybrid or remote teams, in different parts of the world is at the top of the leadership agenda. So, Luis, let's start. How do you feel about, do you feel COVID has drawn a before and after line when it comes to talent management and talent development, and why?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, Nina, thanks for moderating this session and bringing us together, and thanks to Binu for setting up this absolutely fantastic event. I think it's a very needed event at this moment, at this particular moment in time. COVID has definitely turned our lives upside down. I don't think I'm saying anything that any of us hasn't lived. But let me ask you, Nina, to go for a walk. Let's go for a walk together, no? And let's look at, I would say, about 4 or 5 or 6 key elements of what is changing in terms of, or what is dramatically changing in terms of what is affecting talent management and development, particularly at the very senior levels. I think the very first thing is we're going back to take a look at purpose. And that's really coming back front and center. The very question of why do we exist? The concept of why are we here and why do we exist? That's something that people are looking at. I think as individuals, people are reflecting on quite seriously. Why do we exist? Why are we here? How is our life changing? But that's also happening quite strongly in the way we build relationships. It's happening in the way our teams function. It's happening in the way our organizations operate. And certainly, it's happening in how those organizations, those companies, connect and interact with the world around them. So the whole concept of purpose is back on, and is back on as something quite fundamental for us to look at in how we develop and manage talent. The other question is around values. I think one of the things that COVID has done is to bring values back on, not as the nice piece of paper that tends to hang on the wall of every office, but as something that we are truly committed to bring back into the conversation. So what do we stand for? What is important to me, and what is important to us in the team, and what is important to us in the organization? What is it that we stand for? Questions like courage, questions like the resilience, the ability we have to make choices that are important choices, like putting life first, putting family, putting quality of life first. So there are a lot of questions around values that are coming back into the conversation around how we develop and how we manage talent. The third element that I think is coming back in and is quite fundamental is a question about behaviors. Behaviors in the sense of how do we interact? How do we interact among ourselves, and how do we interact with others? Things like bringing trust, collaboration, authentic communication, connecting those behaviors and bringing those behaviors into the fold. When we look at talent management, when we look at leadership development, becomes really quite important. How do we behave? Because the world is changing. The world has changed significantly. Whether we're looking at how clients are behaving and how clients are buying, whether we're looking at our social, cultural, technological frameworks, which have shifted over the past 18 months, 24 months significantly. Our behaviors need to adapt and need to adjust. Otherwise, we're going to be trying to live a new reality with behaviors that were set back in a completely different world. Fourth comment I would look at is rituals. Human beings are ritualistic animals. I would say the majority of people get up in the morning and brush their teeth. Most people tend to have showers, and we certainly like to, before COVID, we would get together around the coffee machine back at the office, or we would go for coffee with people. We would get together for lunch with colleagues, and we would do after hours. So we had rituals, and we had rituals that enabled us to learn from each other. We had rituals that enabled us to connect and build tribe with our colleagues. No? Of course, COVID hit, and our rituals were thrown out the window we became avatars, we became people on Zoom and Teams, and our rituals became different rituals. We were on lockdown. Now as we move on to a new reality, we are being asked to stop and rethink what those rituals need to be, right? So that's, again, a learning process. That's about talent development, that's about team development, that's about rethinking who we are and how we move forward. So it's about purpose, it's about values, it's about behaviors, it's about rituals, it's about vision. Particularly when we're talking CEOs and we're talking senior level, before we would look at vision as 3 to 5 years vision. Now we live in a world of uncertainty, a world of rapid change. So vision needs to be tempered with uncertainty, and it needs to be connected with uncertainty. So how do we build vision? And how do we build vision in a way that it's far more democratic? How do we engage our people across the whole organization and beyond in our vision? How do we build vision that is socially based vision? How do we become activists, corporate activists, and connect our vision to what is the society we live in and the communities we're a part of? So there's a learning there as well, and there's a need to develop there as well, and there's a need to rethink there as well. And finally, the sixth piece on this walk that I would say we're doing is very much around strategy. So what does strategy look like? I was in Paris over the past 3 days working with a client, and we're looking at their strategic plan, and the very, very first comment was, of course, it's impossible to do strategy when we're living with situations that change from week to week. Not impossible, not impossible. What it does mean is that we need to rethink how we approach strategy. We need to relearn how we approach strategy. We need to look at strategy as something that is much more fluid. We need to build into strategy not just action plans, but we need to build into strategy mind maps. We need to understand where are the minds, where are the obstacles, and again, that's a learning process, and that's part of talent development as well. So I would say these are about six elements as we walk through that are changing significantly with this new kind of reality that we're living in a post-COVID, or learning to live with COVID, because we're not post-COVID.
True. Thank you. Thank you very much, Reese. Great start. Milo, are you there? Yes?
I am indeed.
Yes, great. Milo, in this new context that Luis has just described and presented, what can company do to attract and retain the best talent, in your opinion, if we think that companies can actually retain talent in this context? So what are your thoughts about this? Can you please tell us?
Thank you. So, yes, so my thoughts are that at a very sort of, looking at it from a sort of far away, the very basis hasn't actually changed. What you need to do, the fundamentals, but within that, it gets more complicated because obviously things have changed because of COVID. But I'm going to start out with a little example from my own experience, which was some years back, I decided to change industry. And I went to go into a specific industry. I won't mention which industry it was. But I had 3 different interviews with partners of 3 different companies in that industry. And halfway through each of those interviews, while I was being interviewed, I asked the partner, do you enjoy your job? And the look of horror I got on each of those faces said everything. I could see immediately they didn't enjoy their jobs at all. And of course they had to say, yes, they did. But it was a real insight that these are people at the top of their companies, top of their industries, earning huge amounts of money. I could see they didn't enjoy their job. And it got me thinking that actually to attract the best talent, you need to retain the best talent and actually genuinely have engaged employees who feel valued, etc. So I think there's that circle there about attracting talent, retaining talent, that is so important, that is part of it. Something else that I also thought I'd bring up was there was a a report by Harvard Business Review last year that highlighted 5 points about developing and retaining top talent. Number one, start by asking more questions to gain insights. Number two, create more on-the-job opportunities. So if someone likes doing something that's not actually in their job, you can actually bring them into other areas. Number three was vary the learning experiences. So people learn in different ways, they enjoy learning in different ways, so vary that rather than just having one solution. Number four was providing regular feedback. And again, I think a key point here. And then number five was about managing time and making sure that you had time with employees, those one-on-one. And I think a key thread here that goes through that is that it starts and it's all about the individual. It's so important. And in my experience, having managed people, people managing me, having that individual at the center, understanding what they're about, what makes them tick. There was an interesting article by a recruitment company, which is called Indeed in the UK, earlier this year, and it listed a number of reasons of why employees left. And just 4 of the reasons were, number one, feeling uninspired. Number 2, wanting to feel valued. Number 3, seeking a better management relationship. And number 4 was looking for more recognition. And so I think it's really important here, and my key point throughout this, it's the individual. You've really got to look after that individual within the team, and obviously the team wider, but feeling valued, it's so important, it really is. And I'll finish by citing a report that I read a while ago, and I can't remember where this was from, so apologies. But there was basically a report written and a study done about, is it more important to treat your customers better or your clients, or your employees better? So customers or employees. And the study found that actually, if it came to a competition, treating your employees better was far more valuable for the company, because obviously they're front-facing in front of the client. So the knock-on impact is so important with that. So sort of summing up really, I think, thinking about attracting, retaining talent, there's a circle, but obviously you've got to get in there somehow. And number 2, there's many facets to talent management, retaining, attracting. It's very, very complicated. Clearly, what people want now is slightly different to varying degrees than pre-COVID. And finally, a focus on the individual, I think, is so important at any level, right from CEO down to the very bottom. So that's my summary, Nina. Thank you.
Thank you, Milo. Yes. Yes, very true. And actually, when we speak about individual and about individual development, Faris, do you feel there's an obligation for companies and government to upskill and retrain now in this new VUCA environment? And how would you promote this?
Well, first of all, thank you all, and I want to just second and echo the big thank you to BNU and all of you for being here. Obviously, you clearly could bring talent together and facilitate a discussion, so thank you for that as well. It's a really good question, actually, and I think a lot of times people misunderstand it, because when you have to retrain someone, they think I have to invest money or I have to waste money on them. And the reality is, if you don't invest in your own people, whether it's a country with their own citizens or a company with their own employees, then who would? If you wouldn't do it, then who else should? If you don't invest in your own citizens, now that being displaced, then why would another country be interested in investing in your people? So it's a really powerful question to ask and rethink it. And I think part of the challenge is sometimes we want to blame the other, right? We just want to blame someone else. The truth is we are shifted, right? It's a new model for doing business. Corporations have to figure it out as well. For instance, we used to do things in person, now you have to do it virtually, you have to do it hybrid, whatever the scenario is. There will be, I always say, 3 scenarios that you have to explore. One, some jobs will go away and never come back. So you just need to come over that hump. And it's not a popular thing to say, but it's something that needs to be said. Your job is gone. That's it. It's not going to come back, and if it does come back, that's the second scenario, it will come back different. It's not how you had it, maybe a little bit of what you had, but it's probably different. And the third scenario is that job is now something like it used to be, but there's needed less people. So I don't need 50 people, I need 5. Well, so now what do you do with the rest of the people? And now you have to ask the people the question. So now you got the 3 scenarios for the company or for the country. Now you got to go ask the people. Do you like your job? Do you want to do it again, right? So if they do, then you have to figure out, well, there are only 5 jobs, so you have to go to a different company or you have to move, right? You have to give them those offers. Well, I'd like to get trained. All right, so here are the things that we could train you on based on what we know. I mean, we already know what the future looks like. We can't guarantee it because it's changing to what Lois said earlier, but we can at least predict the next 3 to 5 years. And the last thing is you have to ask them if they're willing to be trained. Because sometimes it's okay for people to just retire or move on, to do something different. And that's okay. And I think a lot of times people, whether it's corporations or governments, struggle to let someone know, do you think you're retiring or just doing not working for a minute? Would that be an option, going back to school or doing something completely different? And you just have to accept that that's going to be part of the reality. Are you going to satisfy everyone? If you did, I would be very concerned because that means you really please everyone and you didn't do the work. And the work, unfortunately, when you do the work, someone's not going to be happy. So to answer the question, yes, I think government and corporations should invest in their people, retooling their skills or retooling their habits to the new environment. And they could do it in multiple ways. Funding, internship programs, funding fellowship programs, funding, you could come up with any fancy word you want for it, but you could pair them up with different people to see different pathways. You could give them, incentives to go to school. You could do all kinds of things to really get them going. From a corporation perspective, a lot of times they just need a quick fix. So they're not looking for the 2 to 5 years, training. They're looking for the 3 months, 6 months, and you know that, right? You live it every day. So they're looking for like a month maybe training, and then I got to get them going, maybe a week, maybe on-the-job training. And there are lots of things that are already out there, models that they could follow today that they could just implement and really get the people shifted to the new careers or new workforce that we're looking at. So the talent from my perspective is always there. It's just a question of, are they willing to get trained or learn it? Are they willing to explore it? Or are they committed to do it, right? So these are the things that you want to ask the individuals with the government, of course, and the corporations, having the commitment to train their people. Which sometimes I'm always shocked, like, what do you mean you're the government? You don't want to invest in your citizens? Then why you exist?
True.
Anyway,
True.
we could talk about this obviously for hours.
Yes,
but
yes,
I
definitely.
hope I answered your question. The
Yeah.
answer is yes, and I gave you 3 scenarios for the corporations and 3 scenarios for the people.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Milo, we are back with you. So, what skills do you feel today managers need to have to navigate this complex landscape, connecting with what Faris has just said? What are these skills that government and organizations should really develop, in your opinion?
I think it's a really interesting question, and something that I think that has come really or much more to the forefront is the whole idea of well-being, looking after mental health, and I think it's something that is, it's such an important element because, of course, every organization wants to get the best out of their employees. And so if I sort of ask you all to think, when have you been at your very, very best in a work capacity? When have you been absolutely acing it, playing out of your skin? Most likely it's, you were feeling confident, you were in a good team, feeling supported and confident, healthy, and in a good place, most likely. But I think it's worth thinking about that and then thinking, right, okay, so we have, this even more complex world we're living in now, with, talent working remotely, some in person, a mixture of everything, what people are looking for, the values, purpose, everything that Louis spoke about and Faris has mentioned. And so I think it's really important thinking on that mental health side of things. And there was a statistic the other day by a company called mentalhealth.org.uk, which was that 14.7% so that's 1 in 6.8 people, experience mental health problems in the workplace, which is a huge amount. And you can think the knock-on effect of that. So being able to address that, I think, is something that's really important. And, you know, interestingly, recently I've been talking a lot with people from various organizations about limiting self-beliefs, which are beliefs that people hold about themselves, how they hold them back. An example of one is imposter syndrome. Also, one might be, I'm not a good leader, I'm not good at marketing, I don't deserve a promotion. All of these things that help hold individuals back and therefore hold their teams and organizations back. So I think with managers being able to manage these sorts of things, manage people, emotional well-being is such an important thing. And as a sort of little statistic, which I thought was quite interesting, is that there's an organization called the London Science Foundation, and they've done studies into how many thoughts we have a day, so how many individual thoughts. And they reckon on average, each of us has between 20,000 and 60,000 individual thoughts a day, which I think is a huge amount. Now, on top of that, on average, they reckon that 80% are negative thoughts, which is, again, a vast amount. And then on top of that, they reckon that 95% of all our thoughts are repetitive thoughts, so thoughts that we've had again. So people thinking in the workplace, I'm not good enough, I don't want to fail, I don't deserve to be here, or I'm not good enough for the next promotion. You can see how you start thinking that hour by hour, day by day, by week, by month, by year, how this really compounds. People start to believe these things. So I think, nurturing by managers, looking after their people, being able to get the most out of them, and building them is such an important part. And within that, the well-being is such an important factor as well. And we are seeing this increases in how seriously organizations are taking this. And so I think just sort of underline that, just being able to get the best out of your employees, many different facets of that, but I think the well-being side is such an important one of that.
Thank you, Milo. Would you like to add something? I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would add a couple of things, because I think the reflection Milo is doing is absolutely very, very relevant, and I would add another dimension to it. When it's interesting, we talk managers. The science of management is around managing things, right? We manage processes, policies, we manage systems, we manage infrastructures. Managing things is predictable. Things don't feel, they don't think. If my computer doesn't do what I want, I switch it off, I switch it back on, and it does what I want.
For now.
For now. Sometimes I wonder. The managers are also leaders. And that this component of leadership fascinates me, particularly in this concept of a new reality, because leadership is about people, and leading people is not an art. It's not a science. It's an art, and it's an art because people are unpredictable. We're sitting here with a high temperature. And that conditions our behavior. Milo is sitting in a nice air-conditioned environment, and he looks a lot more relaxed than we do. And so, people tend to be very much conditioned by their environment. So, thinking about leaders and thinking about the component of leadership, I think as we move into this new reality, there are seven arts that leaders need to focus on quite seriously, and we need to develop them on quite seriously. One of them, and I talked a bit about this earlier, is the art of visioning. How do we look at where do we want to get to, and how do we communicate that, and how do we talk with our people, and how do we talk with society about what that vision looks like? Because when we had loads of information and we could justify things on the basis of information, it was easy to talk about vision. Now that we live in an environment of uncertainty, it's far more difficult to talk about vision. So that's one of the arts of leadership. How do I talk about vision? How do I understand the vision and how do I talk about it. The other art is the art of what I call empathic listening. It's not just about listening to the words. It's about listening to the sensations, to the energy, to the intention. It's about putting myself into the other person's shoes. It's about listening to understand. We are into a new reality where people's priorities have changed. I was working with a client in New York a couple of weeks ago. It's one of the largest banks in the world. One of their biggest issues right now is that their people don't want to come back into Manhattan. They are resigning at the senior levels of the company because they have chosen to go out of the city, and they don't want to come back into the city because they have made different choices. One of the biggest problems my client has is that he doesn't know how to listen. And because he doesn't listen, he is losing some of his best talent. So how do we listen empathically? The third art is the art of conversation. Having a good conversation. My 14-year-old son loves his iPhone, as do most teenagers. But to be able to sit and have a good conversation at the end of the day about how did school go and what is happening in his life, to be able to do that with our people, to be able to do that with our friends, to be able to reconnect, to re-energize ourselves, to understand. Many of us have gone through personal loss through COVID. Many of us have seen our jobs shift and transform. Many of us are weary about what the future looks like. So the art of conversation becomes one of the key arts that leaders need to engage in and need to go back and re-understand. The art of capturing hearts and minds. Human beings are not just intellectual beings. We are emotional beings, we're spiritual beings, we are physical beings. So how do we connect? How do we capture not just the intellect of the people we are working with, how do we capture their hearts? Because the younger generations, the idea of retaining talent, we don't retain talent. We need to enamor people so that they want to be a part of a project. They want to be part of who we pretend to be as a company and as a project. And we do that not just by capturing their minds, we do that by capturing their hearts. So the art of capturing hearts and minds. Next one is the art of shifting energy and commitment. How do we, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's in a team, whether it's in an organization, and now it's become trendy to do the town halls in our organizations, but how do we engage in conversation with people, and how do we shift energy? How do we shift commitment? How do leaders in organizations become social activists and actually talk about the stuff that matters and actually go out and make it happen? We shouldn't be talking about women in leadership because it's trendy. It should be actually something that's bloody normal. We shouldn't be talking about shifting young people from precarious jobs into stable jobs because it's a social concern. No, we should be talking about it because it's normal. We should be looking, I have a problem with what's going on here because it's a boys' club. It's Nina moderating, and then there's 3 white guys here having a conversation. No, wrong. There's something wrong with this scenario. So the art of shifting energy and commitment in the room, fundamentally important. And then there's two last arts.
You have 1 minute.
1 minute? I can do it. One of them is the art of storytelling. As human beings, the very first thing we connect to is stories. Our parents and our grandparents held us in their laps and they told us stories. We need to go back and learn to tell stories because a lot of the way we connect with our people and we connect with the world is about telling stories. And when we tell stories, we enamor people, we get people engaged and connected. And the last one is the art of simplicity. Make it bloody simple. I don't understand who, why, or how, or when somebody said that business needed to be complex. I work in strategy most of the time. I marvel at how bloody complex people think they need to make things in order to justify their own existence. Make it simple. Because if you want to connect with people, if you want people to get enamored with what we do, we need to make it simple. So the art of simplicity. 7 arts. The art of visioning, the art of empathic listening, the art of conversation, the art of capturing hearts and minds, the art of shifting energy and commitment, the art of storytelling, and the art of making things simple. Back to you, Nina.
Thank you. Thank you, Luis. I mean, we could be here for the whole afternoon. We know that. We already knew it before we started the conversation today, because we have been discussing quite a bit things to be new, us four, because, yeah, we are quite passionate about what we all do. So the question is how we do all this. And Faris, how do you think leaders can actually build this kind of workplace, that workplace culture that meets employee expectations, the expectations that have changed and that we have been speaking about for the past 40 minutes?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think Loz and Milo touched on this a little bit, and I'll just elaborate a little bit more. So since things are changing, managers have to be adapting to what's happening. And that's in the past has not been the same, meaning that they're liking to manage things, to Loz's point, in a certain way, in a certain habit all the time. And if you changed it, they didn't like it. Because we are nature of people of habits, right? That's what you said earlier. So there's there are actually a couple of things that really need to be looked at. One is you gotta meet the people where they are. So the whole concept of like, you gotta show up to my office, or we gotta do this, or we gotta do that, that kind of mentality is somewhat obsolete. It's been going down for years, from a whole dictatorship style, leadership, management style, all the way to like, well, if you don't like it, get another job. That's been going down for a long time, and I think COVID kind of like flipped the equation now, meaning that it's an exception if you want to be that way, because no one's going to work for you. It's not the norm that you do that. And I think some managers and leaders are struggling with that today, right? Because they want to see you in the office, they want to see you, even if you're not working, just seeing you, they think that you're doing something.
Yeah, even if you're not working, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just at least what I've observed, right? I'm lucky enough to work with thousands of entrepreneurs and leaders around the world, so I just watch and listen and observe and try to make sure that I'm always listening to what they're saying, or then watching what they're doing. So with that being said, so one, they have to be flexible, right? They change their model of meet them where they are. Can you come to the office? What would work for you? It used to be the norm that you went to the office and 1 or 2 people were working remote. Well, now it's the opposite. 1 or 2 people might want to go to the office. So that kind of acceptance of that promotion and acceptance of that attitude is really important. The other thing which I think Marcus Buckingham did through the Gallup research, which is a book I read years ago, and I think is fabulous for many to read, which is First Break All the Rules. And it was all about the concept that we're trained to hire people, and once they do a good job, promote them to the next level. Well, sometimes the next promotion is not the next level. It's actually a different department. It's actually a different job. It's maybe actually a day off. Maybe it's actually more money. Maybe it's actually less time work. Whatever that is, you have to find out what that person, this is what I mean, like meet them where they are. Because if they think, it would be nice if I could make the same salary but just have 3 days of work, that's a promotion for them. They don't want to, they were awesome at sales and now you made them a sales manager. They don't like managing people, they like sales. And now you're making everybody in the sales department miserable, and they're miserable, and then they quit. Well, now with COVID, if I'm not even at the office, my whole atmosphere is changing, I could really easily quit. So the last thing I will say about that with the talent is understanding the pressure that people are in today. Because before, they came to the office and that's it. They worked. Maybe they got a call from home, from the office, or for their kids. Well, now they're at home. Kids are maybe coming back from school. Husband or wife or the other person that they're in their house having to do something, and they have to deal with it. So giving that space, I'm going to call it the white space or the clear space for the employee to do what they need to do during the time that needs to happen is important, and the managers have to learn how to do that and let go of that area and just kind of like let it be more of a framework. I need this done in this kind of time frame. Can you do it, right? And then let them be what they want to do. I don't want to keep going. I see, please.
If I may, on workplace culture, And taking off on what Faris was just saying, I would add 2 or 3 things that I think are particularly important as we head back into smart work policies, as we head back into complex environments, right? Because whether people are or aren't, some days, sometimes working remote, sometimes working face-to-face, and so I would add a few things. I would add things that typically and traditionally were not part of the culture, but now become essential. One of them is decision-making models. How do we make decisions? Because we were used to making decisions face-to-face, and we were used to making decisions with a lot of information. We were used to make decisions that quite often were long-term. Now we have uncertainty, we have rapid change, we have quite a lot of remote work environments, and we don't necessarily have the kind of company cultures where people collaborate, where there's enough trust. So decision-making now needs to rely a lot more on collective intelligence, needs to rely a lot more on people collaborating. So how do we build decision-making models that actually work for a new reality? The other one is, how do we manage and negotiate conflict? Conflict is the best and most wonderful opportunity to innovate. If you're a Latin culture, conflict is the most unique opportunity to make it personal, because we're Latins. So we're going to make it personal. No, it's a good opportunity to innovate. But how do you manage conflict? And how do you manage and negotiate conflict, particularly when quite often you're going to be doing it remotely? So you're not going to be doing it face-to-face, and that's going to happen. How do you build diversity into your culture? Diversity is not just gender. It's not just gender. It's generational diversity. It's cultural diversity. It's technological diversity. How do you build that? It's sexual diversity. How do you build that into the culture? Because if you build that into the culture, you make your organization unbelievably strong and able and resilient to deal with. How do you build stress tolerance and emotional awareness into your culture? Because people are going to be suffering a lot more, the instability, and we need to be much more aware and need to be able to cope with that instability a lot more. So those are elements that traditionally were not part of company culture, but now we need to be able to build them into company culture. So those are some small but very powerful things that we need to start looking at and need to engage in, bringing it back into workforce culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Last thing I'm going to say is there's a model also now, it's called 3-2-2. So that's another way that, since you asked me the question, what can they be doing? So meet them where they are, provide them with the space that they need to do what they need to do, and then think about work-life new model, which is 3-2-2 is one of them. I've heard like 4-9-4. So like 3 days on, 2 days from home, 2 days off, or 3 days off from home, 2 days in the office. So coming up with new models would be one way to do it. Obviously, it's a loaded question. We'll stop right there so we can maybe have some time for questions and answers.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Luis.
Thank you, Faris. Thank you, Luis. Milo, would you like to add anything from the UK?
Yes, I think just one thing that I think that there's a whole, in this new sort of world that we're in, there's lots of different things that different people want. And so being able to blend that in, I think is going to be quite a skill. So some people wanting to work from home the entire time, other people wanting to come into the office the entire time because it tends to be the younger generation because that's where their social life is. But again, just being able and seeing people as individuals to try and build that into, how your culture works, I think is tough. And, I think it's, both very valid points that both Luis and Faris were saying that I think very valuable to learn as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Milo. Then I think we are on time
Yes, we are.
Close this table. Thank you very much, Faris, Luis, and Milo from the UK.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you for giving us the space to reflect on this wonderful and so interesting topic.
Yeah, we gathered a lot of challenges, didn't we? No?
Opportunities.
Opportunities, yeah, that's the word, no? Better think like this in a positive way.
Yeah, change the negative to positive, right?
Yeah.
So, opportunities.
The good thing is that it works.
Yep. It does work.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very good.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you very much, Milo, for being there in a digital way. Thank you very much to all of you to following us in Be Talent. And thank you, of course, to our sponsors, Ajuntament de Barcelona, Akbar, Servihabitat, Ministeri de Transportes, Movilidad y Agenda Urbana. We will come back at 3 o'clock with another panel. It's Be Entrepreneur. Okay, so see you. We wait for you here. Bye-bye.